In a gas station restaurant, a man suddenly realized something terrible. 2 bank robbers might be hiding there. The man called the hostess, knowing their next move could be dangerous. Earlier, A. Kyang was refueling in Yuma County, where the gas station's security guard told him the fuel tank was empty and suggested he rest in the nearby restaurant. While getting out, A. Kyang heard a radio report about 2 robbers who stole $700,000 from a bank and fled in a damaged green car. A. Kyang initially ignored the news and went to the restaurant. He chatted with the hostess, took a newspaper, and started playing Sudoku. Then, 2 suspicious customers arrived, driving a car with a damaged rear end, matching the description from the news. A. Kyang immediately guessed their identities and quietly informed the hostess, pretending to sell knives. However, the alert ringleader noticed their actions and the hostess's attempt to get up. She went to the bar to call her sheriff husband, but the line didn't go through. The ringleader approached her, and her husband was too busy with his models to answer promptly. By the time he picked up, she had already hung up. He didn't think much of it. Meanwhile, the robbers had taken over the restaurant, cut the phone line, and made the hostess and A. Kyang sit together. The ringleader wanted to leave quickly since their identities were exposed. He knew A. Kyang's car was out of fuel and asked the hostess if there were spare cars at the gas station. She said no, as her husband picked her up, and the employees stayed at a nearby motel. The ringleader instructed them to act normal, but if anyone else came, the hostess had to inquire about fuel. Obeying his orders, the hostess returned to the bar while A. Kyang focused on his Sudoku. The restaurant briefly calmed down. An elderly couple then entered. The hostess asked if they had fuel, but they too were waiting for the fuel truck. The ringleader didn't believe them. He instructed his subordinate to check out the motel and security guard's status. Upon arrival, the subordinate found the guard in a room, just as the hostess had described, confirming she wasn't lying since there was no car. Suddenly, a police officer arrived at the gas station. The young, inattentive officer didn't notice the green car at the entrance. As he walked into the restaurant, the ringleader tensed, but soon realized the officer hadn't noticed him. The officer, sent by the sheriff, was there to get coffee and ask the hostess why she had called. Seizing the chance, the hostess put a distress message on the lid of the sheriff's coffee, knowing he would see it since he doesn't drink it with sugar. But the police officer accidentally bumped into the subordinate, spilling the coffee. He went back to get 3 more cups, with the distress message ending up in the trash. At this point, the ringleader came to the bar, and under his watchful eye, the hostess had no chance to write a new distress message. As the young police officer left, the restaurant returned to its usual quiet, but it didn't last long. The security guard arrived to inform everyone of an oil tanker accident, causing further delay. Meanwhile, a stylish young couple arrived at the gas station and noticed the robber's green car with a damaged bumper, confirming their suspicions about the bank robbery. Seizing the moment, they attempted to pry open the trunk with a crowbar, but failed. The security guard caught them in the act, so Curly quickly hid the crowbar and pretended they were there just for gas, joining the others inside the restaurant. With 6 people now inside, including A. Kyang, an unsuspecting elderly couple, 2 robbers, and the lady boss behind the bar, the space felt crowded and tense. An Indian man, clearly a regular, walked in and greeted the lady boss warmly. The robber leader approached the bar again, while the Indian man, sensing danger, discreetly reached for his gun. The robber leader, noticing the man's armed, stayed calm. Feigning friendliness with the Indian man to keep an eye on the gasoline-filled car, the robber leader avoided a direct fight and sat down. The restaurant grew silent. Ah Chiang placed a knife nearby. Huan Mao had a gun, and the old couple also had a handgun in their bag. The lady boss put a knife in her apron pocket. When she approached the robbers, they took her hostage. Listen up. The gang leader ordered the Indian man to give up the keys, but the old man brandished a handgun, followed by the Indian man and Huan Mao. They all aimed at each other, causing chaos. The Indian man defused the situation by offering the keys and urging no one to fire. Unexpectedly, Huan Mao opposed and demanded money from the gang leader, who agreed. Then Huan Mao pointed his gun at the Indian man for the keys and began to leave. The gang refused. Amid their bickering, the lady boss stealthily reached for a knife in her apron. With this move, The tense atmosphere in the restaurant finally exploded. The robber henchman stood alone, but a security guard with a shotgun swiftly took him down. Eyeing the lady boss on the floor, the guard approached cautiously while she remained alert. The gang leader shot 8 people, killing 6. Only A-Chang under the table and a girl behind the bar survived. She grabbed a gun and aimed at A-Chang, who suggested she take the money and leave. She intended to kill him but missed, allowing A-Chang to disarm her and grab a knife from the floor. A-Chang, wielding the elderly couple's gun, approached the barely breathing robber leader, who had been shot in the neck. He waited until the leader died, then squinted at the blinding sunlight outside the restaurant. At the gas station, he considered calling the police, but realizing everyone else was dead, he thought the $700,000 could be his. Deciding to take the risk, he retrieved the robbers' keys, found a bag of cash in their trunk, and transferred fuel to his car. Meanwhile, the sheriff, uneasy about his wife's silence, headed to the gas station with a young officer. A-Chang finished fueling, returned the keys to the dead robber leader, and sneaked out the back when a car arrived. After witnessing the horrific scene in the restaurant, the couple wanted to call the police immediately. A-Chang jumped out to explain, but they wouldn't listen. Forced, A-Chang pulled out a gun, making them compliant. Opening the trunk to give them money for silence, they mistook him for a bank robber. The more he explained, the more suspicious they got. Reacting, A-Chang threatened them, but his gun misfired. The husband then charged at him, causing a struggle during which the gun accidentally discharged. The infuriated husband tackled A-Chang, and they grappled fiercely. In the struggle, A-Chang's gun slipped from his hand. As he went to retrieve it, the gun fired again. Seizing the moment, A-Chang headbutted the husband, then grabbed a crowbar from the ground and struck the husband on the head, knocking him out cold. Hearing a baby's cry, A-Chang approached the couple's car and found an infant inside. Despite shattering this family's happiness, A-Chang, now devoid of humanity, felt no remorse and left the gas station with the stolen money. Shortly after his departure, the sheriff and a young officer arrived and found the couple's bodies. The sheriff ran into the restaurant and found his wife among the numerous corpses, weeping in anguish. Despite his grief, he knew he had to investigate the scene. Forcing himself to remain composed, he instructed the young officer to locate the car keys. Outside, he found a trail of gasoline leading to the road and followed the sound of the baby's cry. Discovering the infant in the couple's car, the sheriff took the baby out. Meanwhile, the officer found the keys, and they opened the trunk, discovering the missing money. Realizing someone had survived, he told the officer to care for the baby. He traced the gasoline trail while A-Chang, fleeing on the other side, stopped midway. The gas tank had quickly emptied. When A-Chang exited the car, he saw gasoline leaking along the route. Turns out, the last can at the home station had hit the gas tank. Knowing he couldn't stay long, A-Chang took the money and aimed to escape through the wilderness. But soon after leaving the highway, he saw an overturned fuel tanker and its dead driver. The fuel tanker hadn't arrived because of an accident. If it had, A-Chang might not have become a murderer. But now, it was too late. At this moment, A-Chang heard police sirens in the distance. The sheriff had caught up and spotted A-Chang next to the tanker. The sheriff charged forward, issuing a warning. A-Chang quickly hid behind the tanker, using it as cover to explain himself. The sheriff didn't know that A-Chang had taken out a lighter. In an explosive blast, the sheriff was blown to pieces. A-Chang, shot and wounded, thought he could leave with the money, but collapsed not far away, closing his eyes forever amid the swirling banknotes. Earlier, a bird A-Chang saw was hit by the flying money. This dramatic moment was like A-Chang. Struck by evil thoughts, he could never be free,